We're going to continue where we left off last time. Okay, a couple of days ago, we were exploring the question, what is cinematography? And we explained that when we look at the etymology of the word, the original Greek words, it basically means recording movement. Kinema, graphein would be in the Greek, cinema, and graphy, cinematography, which is the word that we use, means recording movement. What moves? Images move, moving images. So we also define cinematography uh, by the different way that we can approach this um, discipline. We explained to you that it can be seen as an art form. Cinema is an art because cinema depends on the innate or natural talents of an individual. We also said that cinema can be approached as a science or a technique because you can learn many things. You can learn many skills. You can learn the use of different tools in order to create cinematography. But we also said that it is a language, a very distinctive language. It is a visual language. And it is a language like any other literal language, be it Spanish, English, Russian, Portuguese, but it's not a literal language. It is a language that appeals to our sense of sight and also our sense of hearing. We said that the language of cinema involves the use of light, shadow, color, camera angle, camera movement, editing, which is what you do with the footage that you have recorded, and also sound, and many other things form this language. We can define film language as the techniques that a filmmaker uses to tell the story they want to tell on a screen. And whenever an individual is using tools or resources at their disposal, they do it in a particular way. And when you do something in a particular way, we call that style. So people have style the way they dress, people have style or express a style when they sing, people express style in a variety of ways. And filmmakers can also express style. And that is what we want to talk about this morning. Any question you might have so far about what we have discussed previously? You can feel free to comment or ask if you have any doubts. Okay, then if you have no questions, let's proceed and continue our dissertation, our exploration of cinematography and cinematic style. Film styles are recognizable film techniques used by filmmakers to give specific changes or values to their work. And this can include the aspects of making a film. Anything that you see within a frame. Right now, you are seeing me in a frame, but I am not working at what you're looking here. I'm only concerned with you being able to see me. But if I were taking special care of what you're seeing in this frame, that is what we call the mise en scène. That's a French word. What is inside the scene. Okay? So mise en scène has to be with the way that I will be placed in within the frame, the way the camera moves, okay, the camera angle, the colors, everything that you see in a frame is called the mise en scène. Okay, that's a French word. So that is part of cinematic style. What else is part of cinematic style? Sound. Some filmmakers use sound in very distinctive ways. Um, right now, people that come to my mind include Sam Raimi, They also include Edgar Wright. Uh, they use sound in a way that you can almost see the sound. It's hard to describe. In addition to that, dialogue, which is the communications of the actors, the cinematography, which has to do with the techniques of using the camera, and the mood are all part of film style. Okay? Film style also refers to movements or schools of styles in cinema, and it encompasses all the elements of film: the theme, the story, the camera work, the lighting, the performances, the editing, everything. Okay? So there are different cinematic styles. Now, one thing we should not do is confuse style and genre. Does anybody know what genre is? It's a French word. It would be translated in Spanish as género. Anyone? Do you know what the word genre means? You can say no if you don't. If you don't know, what was that again? No, actually, genre refers to um, the categorization or identification of a narrative based on the content, based on the tone, and based on techniques that are used. This is a definition that you should be learning in the literature class. And why am I using it in cinematography? Well, because cinematography draws a lot from the world of literature. Because remember, in literature, we tell stories. In cinematography, we also tell stories. I think that one interesting way of looking, and a very realistic way of looking at cinematography, is looking at cinematography as the child of photography and literature. Daddy is photography and mommy is literature. They got together, they had a baby, and that baby is called cinematography. Does that make sense to you? Well, if it doesn't, it will one day, okay? But that's one way of looking at cinematography. So you're going to see that we're going to be talking about terms that are interchangeable. There's a lot that's a lot of overlap between the world of literature and the world of cinematography. So when we talk about genre, it's a narrative or a type of story that you can fit into a particular category. For example, if you like stories that scare you and they use certain techniques and conventions like creaky doors, or start describing the environment in detail with the intention of scaring you. What genre do you think that will fit into? Would it be comedy? Would it be action? What do you say? Mr. Perez, what do you say? Or Mr. Roman? Exactly. I agree with horror, because what is the intention of horror? What is the intention of horror? What do they strive to do with you, with the reader or the audience? Scare you. I totally agree with you, sir. The same way that comedy is supposed to make you what? Laugh. That's the goal, right? That's the target. That's what they're aiming for. So you'll notice that a comedy has a series of distinctive features that make it comedy. The same way that horror or action or fantasy or science fiction have distinctive techniques that are used, a distinctive content that separate them from other genres. So when I'm talking about cinematic style, I am not talking about genres. So let's not confuse one thing with the other. Okay, we will be talking about genres very soon in a future lesson. But I'm talking of style, and style Um, it's film style is a distinct form of film genre which categorizes film based on similar narrative structures. That's what film genre is, right? You have westerns, you have romances, you have comedy, you have all that. But film style categories are based on the techniques that are used in filming, such as the type of camera work that is used, the type of lighting that is used. You can have two films that are the same genre, but they can be different styles. And let me give you two examples that you might know. You guys watch a lot of movies because I use movies as references to help you understand. Guys, you watch movies a lot? That a yes or a no? Okay, very good. So let me show you an example. Let's take two science fiction movies. Science fiction is a genre. And when we use the word science fiction, what comes to your mind is, well, you might be thinking, well, science fiction, I expect to see maybe robots, maybe aliens, maybe they will go to space, maybe they discover some new type of technology that does not exist and it's causing all kinds of trouble. Maybe you expect to see a mad scientist, spaceships, um, uh, cutting edge science. That sort of thing is what you expect usually to see in science fiction. I'm not saying that you have to see all of these things for it to be. You might be seeing some of these elements, right? Uh, and that's what you expect to see in a science fiction. But let's take two that belong to the same genre but are different styles. If you saw a movie called Independence Day that came out in 1995, I think it was, it's about an alien invasion. And there's this other movie that I'm going to use to compare, a movie called Cloverfield. And you can see them if you haven't seen them. They're a lot of fun, and they are a movie that people your age can watch with the family. I will not recommend for you to see movies that I think are not age appropriate because there are movies that they might be fantastic, they might be good, but I don't think they're appropriate for certain ages. Like maybe someone your age, maybe you're a bit of more adult or a little bit older. Maybe you can enjoy those. But these two movies are two movies you can see with no problem, expecting to um, not be embarrassed by anything inappropriate. Um, both are about alien invasions. So even the topic is the same, even the subject matter is the same. You have aliens and you have an invasion. However, they are shot very differently. If you look at Independence Day, it is shot as a traditional summer blockbuster. A lot of action, a lot of special effects. It's very grandiose, a big score, a lot of famous movie stars. You know, your typical summer blockbuster. That's Independence Day, not the sequel, not the one that came out like 3 or 4 years ago. That was a piece of junk. I'm talking the original Independence Day from the 1990s with Will Smith. Uh, it's that type of it's an alien invasion movie, but it's shot as this a blockbuster, right? You're one of those Marvel movies or a Star Wars movie, that style. Cloverfield, on the other hand, is an independent film. It's not a studio film, and it was shot using the lost footage style. You know, it is shot in a way that it looks like a lot of shaky cam. The camera shakes a lot. Um, the way the shot looks very bad. It's like if someone were like recording a party, or when you're taking a video, when you're walking around and taking a video of something. That's the type of cinematography that you see in this type of movie. And usually what is presupposed is that, oh, we found some footage or we found a camera. Let's see what they recorded here. And what they see in the recording happens to be the movie. That's the movie. And you've seen many movies like that. It was very popular. It's been very popular for the last 20 years. Lately, I'm not seeing that style being used that much. But 10, 15 years ago, it was like, wow, the rage. Like, it was like a bunch of movies were shot in that style. Famous movies that use that style include The Blair Witch Project, which made it, that's the one that made it famous. You see this in a lot of horror movies like the paranormal activity movies. So that's lost footage. So that's a style. So you're seeing that um, movies can be the same genre, but be different styles. So we're not talking genres, we're talking style. Okay? A film style describes the techniques used by a specific filmmaker. Remember that some filmmakers have their own style that is very distinctive. But the term film style can also be used to describe a group of filmmakers from the same area or the same time period. And there are several film styles that are very famous. For example, we can mention a few. Some of them are film noir. Film noir. The word noir is a French word, and it can be translated as black. Film noir means black film. And it's not that it has black people. It's actually that it refers to the type of movie that was very popular in the 1940s, where the subject matter was dark and sinister. It's not a horror story, but it's subject matter that is sorted in dark and pessimistic and heavy, and you feel like dread. And it usually takes place at nighttime, and there's a lot of like shadows and darkness. So film noir is that style that is sometimes used today, right? It makes for fantastic filmmaking and storytelling. Another one is the cinema verite or real film from the 1960s that was used in France. Another one was New Wave, which is also a French film style that wanted to show like some a level of realism. You have German Expressionism. German Expressionism is probably the oldest one of the style that I'm talking about here. Examples of German expressionism can be seen in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. That's the very first horror film ever made. You can watch it on YouTube if you want to. It's a silent film. You will be seeing in this course silent films. Okay, it's part of the course. Um, Other film that you can see are Nosferatu, is the first vampire movie ever made in 1922. It's another silent movie, and they also use German expressionism as the style of that movie. But the movie that I want you to see, the one that I will be showing you personally, will be Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which is one of the greatest movies ever made. And it's a silent movie from the silent era, and the camera angles that they use are very angular, very sharp, very epic. That's part of German expressionism. And these directors, during World War II, many of them in the 1930s and 40s, they escaped Germany and moved on to the United States, and they continue using this style in American cinema. Because one thing you're going to learn in this course is that cinematography was not invented in one particular country. Some people think in movies, they think, oh, Hollywood, the United States. No, no. Cinematography is a movement that received contributions from all parts of the world. And there was a time in history where Hollywood didn't exist, where the capital of movies in the world, the center of cinema was Germany, was Berlin, not Hollywood. Okay, another style is kitchen sink realism, which is sort of like a documentary style, like very little attention paid to editing and all that. It looks more like raw footage from the news. That's a style from the 1960s and that began in England. And during the 21st century, the beginning of the 21st century, directors like Lars von Trier began a new movement called Danish dogma or dogme, um, as an attack to Hollywood movies that are heavily reliant on special effects. Because one of the things that you see in many Hollywood movies for a while is it's all like more about the special effect than about the acting and the story. And this is like a reaction against that. Like, no special effects, no, none of that. This is about storytelling and acting. Here we have a gallery Famous directors throughout cinema history, directors that were very famous for their cinematic styles. These are giants, these are titans of cinematography. Not a single one of them is alive today. They all passed away. But as you can see, these directors are from all around the world. Fritz Lang, the director of the movie I spoke to you about earlier, Metropolis, he was a German director and he used German expressionism a lot. Federico Fellini, uh, Italian director from the 1950s and 60s. Ingmar Bergman made very dark films in the 50s and 60s also. Uh, and Stanley Kubrick, probably one of the top five filmmakers of all time. He's an American filmmaker. Sergei Einstein was a titan of editing. He was a director, but like his biggest contributions were as a film editor. And we're going to be talking about him later on when we talk about editing. One of my favorite directors here has to be Akira Kurosawa, the greatest director to come out of Japan. If you have never seen Seven Samurai, I recommend it. And samurai comedy called Rintaro is also a fantastic action comedy. Uh, I don't know if you watch international films, but I do. I do. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was watching a Russian film, and it's called Sputnik, and I think it was fantastic. And I was watching it not because I know Russian. I don't know a single word of Russian, but we have captions. It's subtitled, so you can enjoy a movie that way. So if you watch movies, don't stick to just English or Spanish movies. There's a whole wide world out there of movies that are just fantastic. And Akira Kurosawa was one of my favorite directors. Was, I mean, is, but he passed away. And of course, Orson Welles, the director of what the American Film Institute claims to be probably the greatest American film ever made, Citizen Kane. So he was a director, he was an actor, and this is a person we're going to be talking about a lot later on. So these people are important. So, having said that, let me wrap up by saying that the purpose or goal of cinematography is to entertain. Number one, to entertain. Number two, to engage, to grab you, to capture you with interesting topics, to fascinate you, to educate you. Some people think that the main goal of filmmaking should be education. I totally disagree. I don't think that we have. I think that while film can educate, it should not be limited in that way. I think that film should be able to do any of these things in any particular order. Maybe it can combine and do all of them, but it doesn't have to. If it does one of these things, cinema is fulfilling its role. To entertain, to engage, to educate, and to involve the viewer beyond the visual medium. What that means is that after you're done watching a film, it should have created in you an interest in other things that have nothing to do with film, because there's a big world out there, and film can help you gain an interest in things that are out there, like what? Civil rights, the struggle for civil rights, the struggle for equality, the struggle for social justice, um, and maybe your personal struggles to become a better human being. So today you do have work that needs to be sent. You have a reshoot activity here. Just answer these questions and send them to me. I remind you that every work that you send should be a PDF attachment that is clearly identified with your name, homeroom number, date, and the title of the lesson. The title of this lesson is What is Cinematography? That should be in the title of your work. Um, and that's basically our lesson for today. Next week, we are going to fall into block A scheduling, which means that we're going to be meeting only 2 days next week. And this is our last meeting in Zoom. We should be going back to uh, College One next week. And we're going to begin a lesson titled Movies 101. And Movies 101, we're going to be talking about the basics of movie making.